Well, hello, and welcome to Trash with a capital T. I am your host, Bobby, and here we give trashy books and movies the love they truly deserve. And some deserve more than others. So, this is a very special episode, obviously, because it's coming out on a Wednesday. We will still have a normal episode on Sunday. My new videos always come out Sunday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. But sometimes I like to do something like this and drop in a special video out of my normal schedule. And this is something I'm trying out. So it might become a special every once in a while segment. I don't know what the name is going to be just yet, but you will know because it'll be on the thumbnail. And I'll know at that point too because I'll have made the thumbnail. Okay, but specifically, this is coming out of me having read the Left Behind the Kids books. And I'm continuing to go through those. This is actually dropping before my third Left Behind the Kids book video. As kind of a lead-in. I thought this was a good fit for it. Where I am going to look at Christian fiction outside of the Left Behind series, to kind of explore it as entertainment. That's always been my goal with something like the Left Behind books. And I want to explore other avenues of Christian fiction because I want to see if it works as entertainment. I myself am not a Christian, I'm not a believer, but I enjoy always going to stuff that I'm not necessarily the audience for, and seeing, does it serve its audience? Does it speak to their audience, its intended audience, intelligently? Does it use good storytelling to get its point across? And does it respect its audience? So these are going to be honest to God reviews. I'm not here to hate read. I'm not here to make fun. I mean, if I run into something goofy, I'm going to say it, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be making fun of Christianity. I'm not here to try and make fun of anyone's faith. That's not the goal. The goal is to look at this as a piece of fiction, as a piece of entertainment. I know some people will be like, well, you're calling it trash. So yeah, I call everything I love trashy. I love trashy stuff. These are just trashy in a different way. Sorry for the tank tops again. I thought we were out of tank top weather, but no, it's very warm where I'm at right now. So, after all of that rambling, what are we here to do today? Well, we are here to look at this book, the first book in the Forbidden Doors series, The Society by Bill Meyer, or Myers. This is a series I actually have some familiarity with. I did not read this particular book when I was in, this is like grade school, junior high. This came out at 94, but I didn't find the series until I was a little older. I would have been 10, 94. So I didn't find this until I was a little older. It kind of was marketed as a take, like a Christian take on something like Fear Street, because the YA horror boom of the 90s, you needed an alternative for Christian readers. And Bill Myers was a very recognizable name in children's Christian fiction. He was a co-creator of McGee and Me. I'm sure there are a bunch of millennials out there who remember that one. That it kind of blended in animation, live action footage, and basic moral storytelling, like the moral of the story is kind of storytelling. He also wrote, I said it wrong the first time I recorded this, my first take. It is The Incredible Worlds of Wally McDougall books, which were super popular when I was in grade school. I had actually transferred to a Christian grade school in 4th grade. I had never heard of that series before, but I remember the first time going to the school library and all of the boys were like, oh, the new Wally McDougall book's out. I think it was like My Life as a Human Torpedo, as a Torpedo Test Target. That has it listed back here. But my library never actually had these books. My little Christian school library was tiny. But they never had these books. And I was a little, I don't know why. Obviously some school did for this one because I got a school copy. The spine of this thing is so tight. And I couldn't even crack, like it's got the laminate on it. You can't even crack it. Yeah. So I found these because I had actually gone to Tyndale. I think it's Tyndale. They had a bookstore at the time. A friend of mine had taken me, and I bought one of these books and devoured it. I was and always will be a little horror nut. Well, I'm not such a little horror nut now. Now I'm a middle-aged horror nut. But so this obviously drew me right in, and it's interesting because what it does is instead of having murder mysteries and all of that stuff, It uses the concepts of spiritual warfare. I'm sorry to laugh. I know this is something that a lot of people actually hold and believe in. So the idea of spiritual warfare, if it's not a concept you're familiar with, is that in our day-to-day lives, we will encounter the forces of darkness, Satan, the devil, and demons, and they will try and pull us into away from God or away from Christ. And there are specific tools that you have that can help you fight that battle. Now, in this book, we're dealing with things like literal exorcism. There's a little mini exorcism in this one. There is a bigger exorcism in one of the later books. But it's not necessarily saying that's what you're going to encounter, but it's like a big theme is the armor of God, which I don't remember the entire thing, but the basic ones that come up in here is like the shield of your faith, using prayer as your sword, using prayer to fight your battles. And it does it works that into the story in an interesting way. I think it works it into the storytelling well. It does have a very 90s, almost Disney Channel original series kind of feel to the way it's written. I think the series was so weird. It has that kind of feeling. The dialogue is definitely a little on the sitcom-y side. And there's an interesting little tech twist in there. But overall, because this was written for kids, I know it looks like a YA book. This does feel like it's written a little younger. One of the main characters is in junior high, and one of the general rules with kids' books, I don't know if this still holds true, but when I was in school, this was what we were taught. I went to school for writing. Was when you're writing a kid's book, you write older than your intended audience. So if I'm writing a YA book where my audience is going to be 13 to 14-year-olds, I want my characters to be like seniors in high school, maybe a little younger. So it's something that they can aspire to be. They look up to the character. This one is a little different where we have two main characters. One is in junior high, one is in high school. I don't know their exact ages. And I'll get to them in the general plot breakdown. But it does overall work very well. And he does something interesting that also you do not have with the Fear Street books. This ends on a cliffhanger. Not a big one, but it definitely leads into the next book. I am not going to go into spoilers with this one. I basically will say I kind of recommend this one. If you can handle the Christian themes, I think this one is really fun, and it definitely is a throwback to the 90s. It gives you that full-on, fun, kind of cheesy 90s feeling, and tells a decent religious horror story, specifically Christian horror story, with being it's not age inappropriate. It is age appropriate. There's nothing obscene in here. It's a Christian book. It's written for a Christian audience, so it's going to kind of fit that moral worldview as it comes to its content. And this one actually does restrain itself as far as violence goes, which is something I've noticed with the Left Behind books. They don't pull back on the violence. A lot of violence in those books. A lot of people get shot in the face. This one definitely pulls back. There is some threats. There are some, there's peril, but it is done in an age appropriate way and in a fun way. I really did enjoy this one. Okay, let's get into a general plot breakdown without spoilers. So we have two plots following two siblings. We have the younger sibling, Scott, who's kind of like not a class clown, but he's got the bigger personality. He's more of an extrovert. He's Mr. Popular. He has just moved to his new junior high. He doesn't have a ton of friends yet. And his buddy, Daryl, decides to take him to the Ascension bookshop to meet the Society. And the Society turns out to be a group of fellow kids, fellow junior high students, who meet in the back room of this bookshop, and it's done up with candles, and it's dark, all full creepy, where they use an Ouija board to talk to spirits. And this does not sit right with Scott. Now, he does not actually fully know what a Ouija board is. It wasn't something he was ever exposed to when he was younger, but he already knows it doesn't feel right. Then we have the Rebecca story. Rebecca is more of an introvert, but she's an athlete. She's on the track team, and she's just starting to find her own. She's a very skilled runner, and she's getting better. And actually, she's being kind of coached and befriended by the star of the track team, Julie, who seems like this really nice young woman. She's, really there to help Becca. But Becca notices something. Julie has this odd charm. this little bag that has various rocks and salts and herbs in it. And they remind her of something from her time when her family was in Brazil, when they were doing missionary work with various tribes in Brazil. It reminds her of something she would see witch doctors make to help, to use to control people. So we are dealing with the occult in this one. I will say, for some people who are practitioners of religions such as Wicca, this is probably going to be pretty offensive. This is definitely not something that is going to be kind to your belief system, and I do understand that. And even to like some of the stuff they talk about regional medicines and stuff like that, the witch doctors, it comes off very blunt and very, very much from a conservative Christian point of view. So mileage may vary if you are going to read this. If you can suspend your disbelief and just take the book for what it is, and understand that that the viewpoint of this is not going to be the kindest of things that do not fit within that worldview, you should be okay. I went into this fully understanding that. So, and that it was going to have that very heavy-handed approach to the occult. Obviously, I do not share those views. I love religious horror. I do. That's kind of why this is one of the This was one of those Christian books I was like, I need to check this out again after starting the other ones. Because I remember the series, and it just was one of those like, I need to revisit the Christian version of Fear Street. And I had a good time with it. So we have those two plots, and they do intersect because everything kind of comes back to the Ascension bookstore, or specifically, as they call her, the Ascension Lady. We don't really meet her as a character. We see her very briefly in the beginning, but she kind of hovers. Her presence hovers over everything, like with the society and with the charms and stuff like that. And then we also get some elements. The spiritual elements come in an interesting way. So Scott is a little techie, or he says, they use the word hacker. That's the 90s definition of a hacker. It means he can plug in a modem and go to a BBS or a message board. While he is there, he meets this person named Z, not Q, Z. And he and Z start to talk about specifically the Ouija board. And that is where we kind of get the warnings about occultism. And that's where Scott, Z is giving them their guidance and some of the Bible verses to kind of go to. The other aspect is, and this is a part of the book that I actually thought was really well handled. One of the big story elements is Scott and Rebecca have recently, within the book, lost their father. He was a pilot who worked with outreach groups, missionary groups, like Doctors Without Borders, stuff like that. And his plane went down in the rainforest, and he is believed to be dead. Now, I'm not sure if it's clear that his body was ever recovered or anything like that, but we start the book with the assumption that he has passed away. And the way death is handled in this book, specifically grief, is surprisingly mature for a book. For this age group. I really liked how it was handled. You do see the characters talk fondly of their father, stuff like that, and their mom, all of that. But there are scenes with characters, and this is something I really appreciated, where the characters have moments where they do remember their dad and they grieve. And one of the things that I found very important was Bill Myers giving Scott the room to grieve his father. And there was a scene where he is just remembering his dad. His mom comes in, he had just had a terrible dream, and he starts crying. And it's not like him trying to make himself stop. He lets himself have that moment. He lets himself grieve. The reason I say that is important is because some of the messaging that you would definitely get in a lot of Christian literature is kind of that like man up. Men kind of like hold their emotions. And it's good to see a male character who's definitely not chastised for it, where he's encouraged to feel his emotions and to grieve. I know that sounds very mamby-pamby, whatever. I've read a lot of this stuff. I've been exposed to a lot of this stuff. To see a book that allows its male lead to grieve, especially a teenage male lead, where they kind of write them to be a little more tough guy. Like, I appreciated that. I liked that emotional approach. These characters, and Rebecca also gets her chance to grieve, and you get these little moments, and it makes these characters feel more real. It gives them heart. The dialogue maybe on the cheesy side. The structure might be a little cheesy, especially with the whole like Z giving them clues to solve the problem. But the emotional core is there because the kids have something that they're dealing with. And it's not all wrapped up by the end of the book. It's just something that's part of their life. And I really, really, really appreciated that. It definitely speaks to Bill Myers respecting his audience and giving them an emotional core to work through. And I will say, it does feel like Bill Myers respects his audience, his kid audience. He tells a story that is it is pretty smart. It moves well. It's good storytelling. Like I said, I grew up in this environment, and one of the things that always, whenever I get to some of these books, I'm like, you have parables, you have an idea of how to structure a story based around your faith. So look to that if that is what you're trying to do. Those parables don't stop midway through to preach at you and just drop a moral at you. That's not how that works. You find ways to naturally integrate it into the story. This one actually does it in an interesting way. It uses dreams to integrate the faith elements into it, specifically to get the character to understand the faith element or what they're talking about for this, what the point is for this specific book. And he uses its dreams about, Scott is having dreams about his dad. Now, I will say this. The book doesn't make it very clear that this is not Scott's dad coming down and being a ghost and giving him guidance. No, it's his memory. The reason being is because as the beliefs work in this book, spirits, human spirits, do not stick around on this earth. They go into the afterlife. They either go up or down. And Scott understands in the world of this book that his father is in heaven. So as far as we know, he may not be. I don't know if he's dead or not. The way it's written, there's enough ambiguity where I'm like, is he going to show up later? My guess might be C. That's not answered here, but that is something that is brought up because the other part of the other part of the yacht. It's getting a little late. The other part of that is then he understands that whatever these kids are talking to on the Ouija board is not a ghost. It is most likely a demon or demons. We don't get any names, but there is definitely someone who is a little demonically possessed in this book. And it is quite an entertaining scene when that all comes to light, because it's very clear the book has like the Ouija board guiding the kids in the society to make Scott's life a living hell. And it's done in an age appropriate way, like nothing horrible is happening, but I had fun with this book. Oh my God, it was so fun. Yes, it is cheesy. Yes, it probably will offend some people. But you know what? I run a channel called Trashy with a capital T. I watch offensive stuff and read stuff that offends people all the time. I'm going to be doing a video at some point about Beyond the Belly of the Dolls. That movie is definitely offensive. And I'm not comparing it to this. Russ Meyer and this book have nothing in common. But, I understand that not all material is for everybody. And yes, there is going to be offensive material. For some, but I still had fun with this. Do I think all of the books are going to hold up to the same quality within a series? No, I actually already know. I read, I forget I think it was the fourth one was the first one I read, and I read another one called The Undead that has to do with vampires, and I remember that one being a dud. But this one, not a dud. This was quite good. So if you can handle the Christian themes, or you yourself are a Christian and are looking for good Christian entertainment, this is pretty entertaining. And it definitely has the 90s vibe. So if you're looking for the nostalgia, it is there. It is really there. But it does it in a fun way. So do I recommend Forbidden Doors Book 1, The Society by Bill Myers? Heck yes. And I will say this. I got to meet Bill Myers when I was in junior high. I got to have lunch, like me and a bunch of other kids. It wasn't just a one thing. I got to have lunch with him, with a few other kids in my class. And he was talking about his writing process and kind of where he got his ideas and working on McGee and Me and all of that. And I was the only one who asked about this series, and he seemed very happy to get to talk about it. I was asking about what research he did to kind of, did he do any research when he was working on these to kind of get an idea of how the spiritualism worked, stuff like that. I didn't phrase it like that. I was in like 7th grade. But That was one of the things, and he kind of lit up and he got to talk about it because it wasn't a series that I think a lot of people knew about or talked about. Even though this is very much a Christian book and Bill Myers is very much a well-respected Christian author, Christian horror is still something that kind of gets pushed to the side unless it's Frank Peretti. And I think Ted Dekker is another one. I have not read him. I've read Frank Peretti. But those two kind of get the okay. Although I will say some of Frank Peretti, I know at least one Frank Peretti book had a little shock when it came out, specifically The Oath. I have a copy. I'm planning on finishing it one of these days because that one dealt with marital infidelity. The horror. But this stuff still kind of gets pushed to the side. But, you know, I thought for what it was great. And I'm glad I got to experience it and talk to the author about it and let him know I liked it. And I'm now passing that on to you guys. Did this book suddenly make me a believer? No. I don't think any of these books are ever going to do that. But I had fun reading it. And I'm going to grab the second one. If I do a video on it, who knows? Probably. I'm kind of doing videos on everything until I kind of get a rhythm of what works for the channel and what I have the most fun talking about. And obviously, I've been going on for 20 minutes, so I'm enjoying talking about this one. So I'm going to wrap that up there. This one, definitely recommended. I think I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads, and I would give this one 4 stars. It's better than the Left Behind the Kids books. It's way more entertaining. It deals with a much smaller plot. Obviously, this is a more personal horror story, but definitely more entertaining. So if that is stuff that you like or have good memories about, check this one out. Putting that one down. General housekeeping. New videos come out here every Sunday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. I will have a new video this Sunday. It'll be Left Behind the Kids Book 3. I thought this was a good pairing. Sometimes like this, I do special episodes in the middle of the week. I'll drop it on Wednesday, same time, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. If you liked the video, give me a like. If you want to see more of my stuff, subscribe. Check out the channel. I got videos on a bunch of different topics, everything from Sweet Valley High to Slumber Party Massacre. And you know, comments always allowed. Try and engage with if you guys leave comments. So if you got any other Christian fiction that you'd love for me to check out, drop it in the comments. I already have some, one I'm already reading, which is it's one of the adult Left Behind books, but I'm looking at some other authors. Like I said, Ted Dekker. I've got some Frank Peretti that I want to check out. And if you know anyone else that I should check out, let me know. It doesn't even have to be horror. It could be romance. I love romance novels. Could even be something you think might offend me. Bring it on. I've read some offensive books, so all right. And that is where I'm going to end it. So love what you love, enjoy what you're reading and watching, and have an amazing morning, afternoon, or evening. And I will see you in the next one. And a little add-on, just because things have been crazy. Go out, spread a little love. The world can use it. All right, guys. See ya.